So today I'm coming at you with another review. Today I'm reviewing the book that came in the December Fairy Loot box, which is Master of One. I really enjoyed doing the read along. This time I decided that I wouldn't film it. I feel like that's a much more narrow audience than doing a spoiler-free review later. And two, it's a little less stressful for me to just do this and do it all in one take, as opposed to talking about it every day. But it was still fun to interact with people and do that, so I really love the idea of a read along. Maybe I can find other ways to do it too. But anyway, I'll get into my review. I want to start with a simple, short, and spoiler-free summary of what happens in the book. That way you can decide if you even think that this book is worth reading for you or not. Then I'll touch on some more technical details and then end with my opinion on the book overall. So the quick version of what's in here is we follow a thief who is plucked out of the middle of a heist and told that he has to do this task or be killed. So he immediately agrees and is then dropped into a puzzle dungeon essentially. And he has to go through lots of different doors, all with their own troubles to solve. And when he finally gets to the end to see the treasure, it's not a thing, but a person. And that then leads to the real meat of the book, where we are then brought on a larger quest to reunite 6 pieces of this puzzle that's really a weapon, all in the name of power. So the point of views in this book were a little bit more difficult than the ones that I've been reading recently. They've really stuck to 1 or 2 points of view, whereas this one we follow the whole cast. That's not too many people though, it's only 4, and the authors really help you out by putting the name of the character that we're going to be following for the chapter at the beginning of each chapter. And I think even on the corners, so if you put it down in between chapters and you pick it back up and you forget who you're following, which I don't even think is a problem, honestly, all the characters are pretty unique, so I don't think you'd run into that risk. But regardless, the name is on each page so you know who we're focusing on. Another through line that helps to avoid any kind of confusion is that the narration is always in the same style of third person past tense. So I keep having trouble with this section in the reviews. I feel like for some books it's very pertinent and it's very helpful, but in probably most of them it doesn't really matter. Most of the young adult novels that I read don't really have that adult of themes or anything that's too complex that I would feel that it would warrant noting before I'd pass it along to anybody. But regardless, I still thought up something to say here, and that is that this book kind of follows a theme that I've been seeing throughout a lot of YA novels, and it kind of addresses, I guess I'm gonna go with bigotry, because that can be sometimes for race, sometimes for class, just anything that you could use to categorize someone as other. A lot of YA fantasy novels deal with that in a more mystical sense. Sometimes it's a group of people with magic, sometimes it's a different race, stuff like that. So in this one, it's the Fae. The humans are told all these terrible, nasty things that are really bad news, but we meet one and he's super nice. So that kind of seems as though there's been some lying going on and the Fae really aren't that bad. And that kind of sounds like some other things, wouldn't you say? 2, I don't really consider it an adult theme, but I'm gonna mention it here because I don't really have another place to mention it. We have several characters who would fall in the LGBT plus community, but it's not like that's their character, it's not that's who they are, it's just part of their character. And there aren't really any discussions about anything like that, anything about it being different or discussions, it's just this is who they are. All right, let's talk about other things now. So that's what I'm gonna do too. I'm gonna talk about other things now. All right, so romance. This book will give me a lot of things to say in the opinionated section with romance, but since I'm trying to save the opinions for the end, I will just say that there's a lot of pairing off, but with all the action going on and how little time our characters get to just kind of chill and hang out, all that we really see are a few stolen kisses and one really steamy scene where 2 of the characters lay in bed next to each other, fully clothed, and hold hands for a little bit. Very steamy. But that's as intimate as anybody gets in this book. Because of the evil queen and her sorcerers, there are a few moments of violence peppered throughout the story. But the only thing that really gave me any pause was there's a moment where the sorcerer, in an act of control, puts a shard of glass magically into somebody. And though no blood is mentioned, it's not like there's cuts or blood or anything gross, but that did give me a moment of a shiver just to imagine glass in my heart. I know that's not a battle, but even though there are a few battles and confrontation, like violent confrontations later, there's quite a small amount of talk of like blood and stuff like that. Mostly the authors focus on our characters and their abilities and how they're faring throughout the fight. Woo! My favorite part and the longest part of my reviews are my opinions. So this book had a lot of good and some not so good for me. The good was, I mean, one, look at how chunky it is. Because I got this in the Thick as Thieves fairy loot box, I was really hopeful for some heists. We get like kind of 2 heists, or I guess kind of 3 if you cover the mention of him going through the gauntlet when he kind of gets caught right before the end. But there's not a lot of discussion about that, so I don't get to hear all the clever ways that he got around the traps and tricks and stuff. So that was a little annoying for me just because that's one of my favorite kind of elements. But him going through the path with all the doorways, that I thought was gonna be really exciting. And there were a few parts that were, but there was also a lot of glossing over a lot of what he did. It was like, yeah, okay, we're gonna go through like door 1, 2, 3, like 4, and then we're gonna say that he went through 18 doors. I was just like, but I wanted to see that. That's what I'm here for. The third heist later really seems like more of just like a rescue mission. It doesn't really seem like a heist. It doesn't seem like there's any trickery or misdirection involved. It's sneaking to the place, rescuing people, and then running away. But this was supposed to be what I liked. What I liked, but I guess I can't necessarily say was expecting from this book, is a lot of good world building. A very, I don't know, I want to say cozy high fantasy world. You know, you kind of you have your evil queen, you have fae, you have magic, you have like the royal guard, like all these different facets, and I love how it's kind of peppered throughout. There's not a real info dumping session. I guess the prologue was a little confusing for me because there were a lot of names dropped right away. But after that, whenever we get to hang out with Rags, the thief, it seems a little better grounded there. You know, he explains that he's a thief in the slums. That kind of gives me a lot of grounding. And then they start to pepper in more of the fantastical details. So I really loved that, and they kept it out throughout the whole book. I really felt like immersed in each different environment they went to, and I had a lot of fun with that. The thing that I found less exciting about this book for me is the romance. I apparently have the withered heart of an old widow, but I'm tired. I'm tired of hearing all these flowery romance scenes where, oh my god, he held my hand and my heart fluttered. And there's a lot of that in this book. For some people, that's awesome. They're gonna love it, and that's great. But for me, that's not my cup of tea. And everybody pairs off. Most of it isn't too overwhelming, although Rags does find someone. I'm gonna try, like I said, I'm gonna try and keep it spoiler free. But his relationship is probably the most talked about, and so the most eye-rolling for me because there was a lot of that. Like, I held his hand and my heart raced. I'm happy for you, but like I don't need that. That's not for me anymore. Like maybe when I was like in high school, and this is young adult novels, so that's probably why I have this problem because maybe a teenager would get excited reading that, but I don't. I got a fella. Like I don't have the stirrings of a new crush and a new love. Like I got that old love that you can do a gross burp and like still be like, but I love you. Which you never hear about in these. I want more of those scenes, please and thank you. But back on track, that was not my cup of tea, but those scenes were fine and were not too overwhelming, and I was still able to enjoy the book. The last thing that I just want to mention in the opinionated section is that this one, I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like it distracted me a little. It made me perhaps not enjoy the book quite as much, but it didn't really like stand out or anything. And that was just having the literary knowledge that I have and being able to see these kind of plot tools, plot devices so like blatantly kind of distracted me from enjoying the book, I think. The most notable one was the MacGuffin hunt. Like it even says on here, 6 pieces of Fey relics. So they are going out to collect 6 pieces. I'm not used to seeing so long of a MacGuffin hunt in a book. I'm used to seeing it on TV. Didn't really watch Dragon Ball, but I'm familiar with it. Watched a little bit of Inuyasha. That one was really bad about that. And I'm sure there's some other examples that I can't really think of right now. But in TV and video games, it kind of makes sense. You have a lengthier thing. But in a book, the pacing felt weird to me. If you're going to collect 6 things, and especially if this is the Master of One, because that's a little bit of a spoiler. Possible spoiler, skip like 2 seconds if you don't want any possible spoiler. Master of One is 1 being the first Fae item. Non-spoiler, you're fine now. But we find a lot of those MacGuffin pieces pretty fast, and it confuses me, but especially too with the number 6. I was kind of expecting to have 6 books, perhaps. I mean, maybe they'll make it 3, but with the pacing of finding them, I kind of expected to, at the end of it, at least have all the pieces. And then maybe the second book would be overthrowing the regime of the evil queen. But that just really stuck in my craw throughout the whole thing. I could see it really for what it is with the MacGuffin hunt. It's just an excuse to put all these characters different places and interact with different things that they wouldn't if you were just like, oh, you're in this town solving this problem. Or like, you're overthrowing the queen, so you have to go to the capital city, and you're only gonna find a certain amount of adventures there. But if you have to go from like this ancient ruin to a town on the edge of like society to like the capital, like then you have lots of different opportunities for adventure and to find new things. Like I said, didn't make me not enjoy the book, just kind of distracted me from, I think, enjoying it as much as I would have if either it was handled differently or if I didn't know about MacGuffins. I realize now too that I haven't said what a MacGuffin is, just in case you don't know. It's basically the filler name for the item that you're questing for, where you need several pieces to create a end goal thing. So that's why I brought up those anime. You want to collect the 7 Dragon Balls so you can make a wish. Like, you have to have all the pieces to get the end product. But anyway, my too long didn't read for this book is that it's great if you like high fantasy books with magic and fae. It's even better if you enjoy cutesy romance scenes, like a lot of hand-holding and smooches, but not anything more intimate than that. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this book. There is going to be a sequel. I remember when we did the read along, a few people worried about if it was going to have a second book or not. And it will, and I will probably pick it up. But again, it's just kind of sunk cost fallacy. I'm already so far along. I'm invested enough to want to see how it all ends. But that's it for my review. I just want to thank you so much for watching through the video for me. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. And I hope that you're having a great day, and I hope I get to see you again soon. Bye for now.